Hello everyone. Today we will continue to talk about the book written by Mankiw, which is the Macroeconomics. So previously in the first episode we mentioned about the basic of what macroeconomics study, what macroeconomic is, and like the reason or the job of some macroeconomists. What do they do, and how do they explain like some economic things by models? And at the very last of the video, we analyze a graph about the U.S. history and how the economy measure fluctuates according to the U.S. history. And we introduced the first part, which is the real GDP. And today we will look at the second part, which is use the inflation or deflation rate to depend the well-being of a nation's economy. So, just like what previously I mentioned, the first five affairs, which is all about history. And today, I want to first talk about the first oil price shock and the second oil price shock. So like what is written in the word, we can see that the first oil price shock happened in 1973. The cause is that the OAPEC, which is the Arabic Alliance to Export Oils and Other Goods. So it is basically like alliance among those Arabic countries like Saudi Arabia and also like Iran or something like that, I suppose. Like they form an alliance to ensure that they can have a same policy on whatever nations like they are opposed. Like if the nation is USA in this case, then all of these countries are determined that they will not export something to USA in order to like post and kind of like embargo on those kind of like things. So they put an embargo on the oil export to every country which support Israel. So it is not just basically America. Any country support Israel are being given this embargo. So probably like USA's alliance, because they need to stay on the same political point of view. They are both being embargoed by these like oil experts. But as we know as common sense that it is those regions like Saudi Arabia, those regions, they produce huge amount of oil. While USA, we can say that the USA do not have like any kind of like oil reserve. But this is the case that USA might want to protect these oil sources from being, overused, so that it will benefit their next generation. So they probably like they hope to get some oil or import more oil than export from Saudi Arabia, because according to my point of view, like those like Saudi Arabia countries, they are a bit overusing their oil resources. Like I know they need to consider more about the future, but the case goes like in 1973, USA completely lost any oil import from the Saudi Arabia. So although like what we mentioned is that most oil are not like, even we say half or over half of oil is produced in the alliance, the countries joining the alliance, but still there are a lot of oil produced in other countries, for example like China. So it should not be such a price shock as what the data shows, which is the oil price raised from $19 per cubic meter to $75 per cubic meter. The price is significantly higher than the world average because the following analysis is because like oil, since there has not been any development of renewable energy, so the oil is the main source to, even if you want to drive some car and taxis and even like public transportation, it is oil that keep those machines running. So the inelastic demand of oil made the main supplier of the US oil is those Arabic countries, so a huge hit towards US economy. Since like I suppose originally they buy bulk amounts of oil from Arabic countries, so they may like USA may receive a trade discount, but first, the discount is definitely cancelled, and second, because of the abandon of those oils, like it is hard for them to contact a new buyer because probably they are like maximize their profits through the oil purchasing, so it is hard for them to adjust like the supply of their oil in such a short period of time. So the price goes around like 3 to 4 times like compared to the average level. So it is a huge hit towards U.S. economy, which is referred to the first oil price shock. But we need to notice in this oil price shock, which is noticed as the first oil price shock, it is like USA was first forced, like they are not allowed to import any kind of like oil products from Saudi Arabia and from this alliance. But the case is completely different from the second oil price shock, which is actually during 1980. So because USA it's not the scapegoat of the character in the second of oil price shock, because like during 1980s, like they attacked on Iran history, and so it significantly reduced the total oil output of Iran. So if we say that the first oil price shock, it is just limited the impact on only like those countries which support Israel. But for the second oil price shock, it is because the producers cannot produce that bulk amounts of oil. So it leads to an increase in the whole worldwide oil price. So it significantly reduced the total oil output of Iran during their financial year because of USA's invasion. So the strong and inelastic global demand leads to the price of oil start to rise significantly. But USA, in order to pursue its own profit, it do not let Iran rise the production again, cause a rise in oil price. So the main logic is, if Iran again produced bulk amount of oil, it means it will benefit their enemies. Because if only Iran can, produce the bulk amount of the oil, they can choose which country they're selling to. It will definitely not be USA. So USA do not want their opponents to get them much benefit. So they pose a ban on Iran products, so cause a globally rise in oil price. And the 9/11 terrorist attack, I think it is kind of become a basic knowledge of every people's mind, and because it is just a one day's event, and we have to confess its effect has been affecting people for a pretty long period of time. But we can see from the graph, if we really consider about the inflation and deflation rate, we can see when the 9/11 happened, it is kind of going in a normal trend, because according to nowadays world, quite healthy inflation level is around 2% to 4%, some kind of like that. But we need to notice some peak and some, really unusual time period of the inflation and deflation. So first, it is the World War I, which is the inflation. Because World War I, if USA is participating, it caused a lot of deaths during that period of time, leading to but in, I would say, USA's territory, the demand do not decrease anymore. But according to the whole the scale of the whole world, the supply decrease. So it caused inflation, and afterwards, because of the supply began to rebound, to bounce off, and the demand keeps almost the same, or they realize that the price level is too high, or they even realize that they are pushing a bit too hard on Germany, kind of like that. So it's become a deflation. The Great Depression, definitely it's a deflation. And World War II, we can see the turning point probably is after Hitler's surrender. The inflation rate becomes a bit abnormal, but then decreases to normal rate. And both the Korean War and the Vietnam War shows an increase in the inflation rate during that period of time, because of the supply of U.S. products decrease, but still the demand are increasing, and it is kind of part of due to the people are really annoyed about their government. They say like they put so many like military force into unuseful places. So it is kind of like about history, because in history, when we discuss about those two events, it was supposed that most of the U.S. residents feels a bit dislike about these events, because first, according to the result, the Korean War and the Vietnam War, they both do not gain a big success. So, but still, like, there are a lot of people like being killed dead or shot dead in those kind of like area, leading to like a discomfort by U.S. residents, because they saying like the government are spending a bit too much budget on those kind of like places. They need to like offer more benefit or welfare for their own residents, and leading to like some discomfort about the U.S. government, causing to a bit increase of the inflation. And this is basically what I want to include in the second episode. So thank you all for supporting. Have a nice day.